is called WordSlingers, where the words we live, not for the meek. I'm your ever-loving host, Michael C. Watson, sitting here basking in the glory of all that is Janet Kuypers. Go for it. I was going to ask, now, who is your, when you're on stage, and who is your audience? Who do you, when you're writing your work, who is your audience? Are you writing to a given audience?
No.
Okay. Good.
I write until I'm satisfied. I write for me. I write for me. Well, I mean, if you're not going to be satisfied with something, you're doing it on your own level. So, you know, to write for somebody else is not to actually get your message genuinely across the way your soul would do it, I think.
And what is your process like in terms of editing, rewrites? Just when you actually sit down to write, what is your process?
I hear people talk about like editing and rewriting stuff. I'm like, you know,
so it comes out whole cloth, just
you know, and I might look at it now if I'm reading, I'm like, oh, scratch out that one word and change something, you know, and I might not ever bother to change the original, or maybe I will, whatever, but usually I'll just have an idea and I'll let it simmer, percolate in my brain, and then and I'll just vomit it all out. There it is, instant poem, something. I mean, it's not like polished beautiful, but I mean, it doesn't take me.
Right.
It might not be polished. Like
it doesn't sound like you actually worry about it. I know there's poems of people who nitpick every word, every nuance, every inflection, every line has this just worked and worked and worked and worked. And I'm speaking from experience, but you know, that kind of thing, and that's not you.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I figure, because usually things are related enough to my life that I'll think about it and I'll blurt out vaguely what I was wanting to say to begin with. I mean, sometimes I'll come up with something more, and I might sit on something for a while in my head to come up with it. But
okay. Now let's start kind of an arc. When you first started to now, what would you say your greatest strengths and your greatest weaknesses are as a poet? Maybe looking back over the years that you've been writing from the beginning to now, how have you progressed?
Back in grade school, I rhymed.
Okay.
I don't seem to believe in it now.
Okay.
And by the way, for anybody that wants to get anything published at Scars Publications, we do not consider rhyme. Sorry, other places may. We don't want it. Sorry, flat out. Sorry, no rhyme.
Okay.
I think when I was younger, I would just write goofy messages, and then as I would get older, I don't know, just more and more issues would come up, and the more I want to attack them.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny when you go from year to year, like I found myself dealing with violence in America so much in the mid-90s, and I wrote tons and tons of pieces, and I would never write anything like that again. The progression of my work, I don't know.
How have you gotten stronger? Do you think your work has gotten stronger, say, now as opposed to maybe a couple of years ago?
That's harder to say because as of late I've just been doing so much more publishing stuff that I've been more focused on designing works and getting these shows together that I'll often take. Oftentimes the pieces that I'm taking are pieces from the late 80s. I mean, the most recent show I did, there was a Mercury Cafe had things like for so many years of poetry. And so I said, all right, I'll pull things from the 80s and the 90s and from this decade, and it'll seem like it'll flow together. And for the older stuff will sound like it's more genericized, because I've learned how to actually be more specific with what I'm saying, I guess. But that just comes with, as you grow and write more, you can learn what more specifically you want to say. What we always say for writers in general, being descriptive is always extremely helpful. So, actually make us feel like we were at the scene, and then it will become more believable, and you'll actually feel like you lived through it.
Good. Now, in closing, do you have anything coming up that we should know or go to, or what's coming up?
The only show I've got set up is at the cafe. That's the 9th of September?
9th of September.
Oh, 90908.
90908, September 9th, 1908. I mean, 1908. There we go.
I'm not that old.
September 9th. Go back in time, people, to September 9th, 1908, and we'll take it from there. Tell you what, we got about a minute. Can you give us a quick poem, and then, Lorraine, it's you.
All right. I just pulled this one. I just pulling something from the book Like the Ash from CCMD. It's a shorter one. It's called There I Sit. There I sit, I sit alone, separated, isolated, away from my only love, my obsession. I pull out a fountain pen, I look at the lines, the contours of his face, defining the piercing eyes, the pointed nose, the tender lips. I feverishly draw, I sketch, I capture his image. I stare, I gaze, I memorize his every detail, but he never looks back. So I will draw until my fountain pen runs dry.
All right. The show is called WordSlingers, for the words we live and not for the meat. Janet, I want to thank you for being here. And again, find out more about her at janetkuypers.com. That's Kuypers, Kuypers.com.